For Wednesday, April 15th, 2020. Let me open with a word of prayer. Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, and Father, we just ask that you be with our community and just be with our country this day and the upcoming weeks as we're battling this this change in our lives and also this virus that's going around. And Father, just help us to be more civil with everybody, and just be with those people that are unemployed right now. And just, Father, we just pray that you just help them realize that you're with them and everything's going to be all right one of these days, and it's going to be back to normal, and hopefully we'll learn something from this. Lead, guide, and direct us and give us wisdom in this meeting. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. First, there's no public comment. The first item on the agenda is the minutes from the March 18, 2020 meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept the minutes as submitted.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Next item is the contract award and change order number 1, Magnolia Park Water System Rehab. Andrew Burris.
Yes, sir. We've been reviewing these bids for a couple months now with the city. There was 2 bidders when it came back. There was a bidder that was lower on the city's portion but higher on JWSC portion and vice versa. We went back to the contractor through the city and asked if they would be willing to honor the price of the lower water contractor price, and they have agreed to do that. So the request today is enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the city, because the city will manage this contract similar to the way they're doing L Street, and have an immediate change order for that reduced amount, because the award of the contract would have to be for the full amount bid. So the water system rehab portion on the original bid was $2.5 million, and we were able to negotiate down to $1.65 million. That is within the budget once we made the adjustment in February to that. So the intergovernmental agreement is, we've done several of these with both the city and the county. Essentially, the city would manage the project, and the city would invoice us for the work done by the contractor. We would pay the city back. And this is a contractor that we have worked with before. The city is recommending we move forward with this contractor, and with the negotiated price, we are okay with that.
What was our original estimate on our portion of this contract?
The scope changed a little bit. The original scope of this project was to lay the water lines in the center of the road, and the estimate of that was $1.1 million. This is putting everything in the shoulder. So you've got some additional curb and gutter driveways and stuff like that we'll be paying to replace.
If the city is running the project, do we have someone on site or overseeing the?
We have full inspection rights, and Mr. Klein's staff will be there daily while they're working.
Little field trip, huh? Okay.
On this change order that you have here, on the unit prices that you have you adjusted all of those proportionately in here too?
We have not received the schedule of values from them, simply the not to exceed amount. They will provide that prior to getting underway with the contract.
I see it's going to be a unit price contract.
Yes, sir.
It's not a lump sum contract, so if they have, depending on how they adjust the unit prices.
Yes, sir. We will certainly, we will be in review of that prior to signing any contracts with them. The city has canceled their meeting tonight, but they intend to move forward at their first meeting in May with this proposal.
Right. How long is the duration of the work?
It was either 18 months or 2 years.
I think it's a long one.
It's a long-term project.
Okay, right.
It's a phased project.
Okay, phased.
This is a project, it's an existing subdivision in Brunswick.
Mm-hmm.
off a community road, and the city of Brunswick was gonna pave the project, pave the streets anyway, and do some drainage improvements.
I see.
And the JWSC, the majority of the water lines in there are transite water lines, and we have a lot of leaks in there. So we wanted to replace the lines the same time this work was going on. That's how the project got started. Is Brunswick using SPOS funds for their portion?
Yes, sir.
But we're not using SPOS funds.
We're not using SPOS funds. This is R&R funds, and it is 548 days, which is a year and a half on the contract time.
Do we know how the contractor's gonna work? Is he gonna, he's gonna have a subcontractor doing the work for the water lines?
Yes, sir.
Will he be able to get in there and get out, so we won't?
Their intent is to do this in phases, complete phases of the neighborhood with paving water lines first, storm drainage, and paving all in one shot. Complete that phase, and then move out to the next one. Of course, there'll be some overlap and tying with paving and whatnot between streets, but that's their intent.
And is Woodard the subcontractor?
They were not the original subcontractor for the low bid. They were a subcontractor for the other bidder, and the pricing was reflective of that, but we have not been told whether they're intending to use their existing sub or move to another one.
So who was the low bid for the, I mean, this is the bid that the second bidder had, right?
Well, the total contract price, the Georgia Asphalt Producers was the low bid. They had a sub, the sub they're using out on L Street is my understanding, that bid that job. We went to the other contract, and there was about a $800,000, $900,000 difference in water system price. We went and said, we can't do it for this amount, we can do it for this amount, are you okay with that? And they said yes. Whether he's gonna use the other subcontractor or his existing subcontractor, we're not sure yet, but he will be doing it for the 1.65.
In the agreement with the city, do we have the right to approve the subcontractor?
I'm not aware that we do.
We can make recommendations, but it is the city's contract.
But we're paying for it.
We are paying for it, yes, sir.
That seems that we can certainly put in the IGA.
Yes.
Who inspects for the material used and the quality of the workmanship?
On the water and sewer side of any project, we do that. We provide.
So they could not use substandard material or do a sloppy job?
No, sir. No, sir. We make sure we're getting our value out of our contract.
So the total contract for the city is $5.5 million.
That's correct. Yes, sir. The two bid prices, when they came back in, were within $100,000 of each other. It was just where the pricing was weighted. That was a major difference.
So what are the two original total bids?
6.4 and 6.5 for the full contract.
So this one is going to reduce from 6.4 to 5.5 essentially.
That's correct, with all of the reductions being water system related.
I'd like to offer a motion. Move that the Facilities Committee recommend approval of the intergovernmental agreement with the City of Brunswick for Magnolia Park Water System Rehab and the approval of the change order number 1 to the intergovernmental agreement to adjust the Division 2 price to not to exceed $1,650,000.
Second?
Motion and second. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Next item is the contract award Brockington area sewer line repair. Andrew?
Yes, sir. We are repairing about 800 feet of 12-inch diameter sewer line in the Brockington neighborhood. We received 6 bids on this project. Interesting thing we allowed on this project was the contractor to determine the method of repair. We had some contractors that submitted a trenchless repair option and some that submitted an open cut repair option. So on the bid prices, you will see quite the spread, and that was because of the difference in methods for performing the contract. Low bidder was Gulf Coast Underground out of the Mobile area at $98,327. We have talked to them. They are still ready to move on this project, even with the ongoing things with the coronavirus, and they expect to get started on this, if awarded, in early May. So there are the attached bids on the back for the unit cost for each of these items. This was approved as part of the 2020 capital projects plan, so this funding has already been approved for the year. We approved $275,000 for this project based off some quotes we received earlier before putting it out for bid, but it appears that we will be able to save some money off of that.
I'll make a motion that the Facilities Committee recommend awarding the contract, a contract with Gulf Coast Underground LLC in the amount of $98,327 for the Brockington area line rehab project.
I'll second the motion.
So second, any questions?
Comment or two, please. In looking at the differences in the bid items and the unit costs that the various bidders offered, as we chatted, there's a widespread difference on some significant items, and I would hope that staff has some discussions with some of the folks to understand why the top 3, for example, offered such a difference in their unit cost for those specific items. And I can only imagine that either they didn't understand the data that was provided to them, or they are anticipating some wide range of issues related to it. So compared to the one that we're recommending awarding it to. So I think there's something to learn from those others. Either they're too busy for the work, or they didn't understand the scope effectively. So just comments for y'all.
Yes, sir.
I agree.
I think.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
the disparity is astonishing.
yeah, it's kind of two groups. You know, the bottom group, even though between 1 and 3, it's a pretty wide range, but you can really look at it and say, okay, I understand that. And then the others are just way out. So
Yeah.
Just looking at it, I'd say Gulf Coast is gonna use a guy with a shovel for the sanitary removal. And another guy's, he's gonna use 2 guys, and the third guy, he's gonna use a whole crew, 5 or 6.
right. So it's a so just thoughts, food for thought.
Yes, sir.
That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Generally, you put in the items that you anticipate the contractor having to get on this, and a lot of the discrepancies sometimes is in the mobilization, bypass piping, and traffic control. And then they have, and contractors will look at it, and sometimes they'll say, well, this is gonna be a lot harder job to do on some of these things. And so it depends on how they feel about different things. What you don't want is to have, and it's a good thing that the Commissioner mentioned this, we want to make sure we don't have unbalanced bids, because we can reject any and all bids, and in particular if it's an unbalanced bid. And if it's unbalanced in particular, that it might affect the total contract price. If they have a real high number, and you look at that number, if a the low bidder has a high number compared to everybody else, and all of a sudden we had more of those units, once we started to work, then we would be paying a much higher price. So we have to watch for those. And I don't think that's the case in this. They're not that unbalanced where we would be affected by that. So we have a motion and a second to award the contract. All in favor indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries 3-0. Next item is a bid rejection, Splash North Mainland Phase 3 Pump Station Rehab. Mr. Burrs.
Yes, sir. To your very appropriate point just then, we do have the option to reject bids if we believe there seems to be some issues with them. What we've done here, we received 3 bids on the rehab jobs for pump stations 40, 35, and 36. Those are total pump station rehabs with new pumps, interior piping, and new electrical and new odor control units located there. This is funded through the 2016 SPLOST. 3 bidders. The low bidder was $3.4 million. Our budgeted amount for this project was $2.75, and the engineer's estimated cost was $2.8. So when the bids came in substantially higher than what we had originally budgeted, we went back to them and tried to negotiate scope of the project down to get it under budget. We've been going back and forth for a couple of weeks with them now, and we have been unsuccessful at reaching a compromise on this. Therefore, we are requesting that we reject these bids and rebid this with the reduced scope that we offered to the low bidder.
I make a motion that the Facilities Committee recommend that the full commission reject all bids for the IFB 20-015-2016 SPLOST North Mainland Phase 2 Pump Station Improvements.
I'll second the motion.
I have a question or comment. I think if we approve this and the commission approves this, I would recommend that we might put off taking bids on this until after we take bids on 4003.
Okay.
Let these contractors realize, because we might get more contractors bidding this job after this virus thing is cleared up. And the line that is coming to it, we're going to be talking about it in a few minutes, is going to be delayed a little bit too. So we might want to just consider that.
Absolutely.
There's a motion and a second. Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Next item is infrastructure dedication, West Point Plantation. Mr. Klein.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, good afternoon. This is a dedication of infrastructure and easement, and actually a parcel for one of our pump stations. So this will knock one of them off of our list of cleanup we're trying to do with property ownership and whatnot. This is in West Point Plantation on St. Simons Island. It's the dedication of the pump station infrastructure, the pump station parcel itself, and then also, believe it or not, when this subdivision was platted, the sewer was platted as public. For some reason, the water was not. So this clears that up as well. So the water now becomes officially owned by Joint Water and Sewer. It's been maintained, both the water and sewer, since the subdivision was created. So this really doesn't change anything operationally or whatnot for us. It's just a cleanup of the ownership paperwork. That's what this is. So you'll find the attachments that are listed. I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Why do we have the fair value of the pump station at $1?
Great question. We've talked about that with our finance folks, legal folks. Basically, they feel that the infrastructure has been devalued to this point. I think this was put in early 2000s, around 2000.
Early 90s.
90s, yeah.
And
Even
I say it's fully depreciated.
Yes.
fully depreciated, correct. So,
And we've done other of these dedications for existing pump stations we never got to transfer on that were of this age and older, and they've been listed as $1 on the value. So this is consistent with what we've been doing.
Now, on the property that we have, is it big enough if we have to expand the pump station to the property we have? Is the plat included in this?
It is, yes, sir. There's, one of the attachments will be the actual station survey itself, so near the end of the attachments. It's the parcel deed or parcel plat there. This is really kind of at the end of the road, so to speak, up Frederica Road. And we don't expect much more development to happen. This is Pasco, Frederica, Fort Frederica and all that. Yep.
Yeah.
There's,
Well, much more development other than the West Point Plantation that this is serving.
Correct.
No new developments are likely in that area outside of what's already there.
correct. Upstream, yeah, thank you. Upstream from this station, there's not a whole lot of,
No, there's
unless
not.
major subdivisions, you know, parcel subdivisions were to happen, could happen. The station has some upgradability to it as it is. Don't think that we need a site bigger than,
Looking at the plat, it looks like the land that we would own is much larger than what we have fenced in right now.
that's
That's
correct.
correct.
Yes, sir.
That is mostly due for access issues. If you see, there's a Bell South easement on the other side of the pump station where the existing gate is. So we will be relocating a gate to this new section because we can't exactly get a VACCon truck around all that telecommunications equipment. So we park on that end and have to walk in, which is okay when we're doing pump station work, but if you have to get heavy equipment in there, there's no practical way unless we get this additional space.
Well, this is finishing everything in West Point now. We own
Yes, sir.
everything. That's great.
Yeah, that's a good look. I'll make the motion that the Facilities Committee recommend that the full commission approve terms of the release agreement with West Point Plantation LLC and the acceptance of Pump Station 2038 and the water system as public infrastructure for ownership, operations, and maintenance.
I'll second the motion.
Motion second, all in favor? Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Water distribution surplus items, Mr. Burrs.
Yes, sir. We are currently trying to onboard our water distribution warehouse into our City Works program. Ms. Crosby has been working diligently on that. As we were going through this, we determined there was several items that were left over from the United Water transfer that had never been used. So those items, there's 163 items totaling $8,739 worth of value that we are recommending declaring as surplus and disposing in the manner. We'll put them up for gov deals if anybody wants to bid on them. If not, we'll get rid of them. But this clears it off the inventory list.
So we're gonna never need these kind of fittings anymore?
Well, we have a stockpile of fittings at the warehouse that we use. We don't typically use these style fittings for a lot of these or don't have these sizes necessarily in our system anymore. Not a whole lot of need for a 6x3T.
As soon as we settle, we'll have.
Yeah, there'll be a 3-inch line tomorrow, but right now, not a whole lot of need for a 6x3T.
All right, the question, now that we've gone through the inventory at Harrington, so there shouldn't be any issues with rolling that out on the materials management system.
No, sir, what we're doing there actually is taking, as we're uploading it into the system and doing rolling warehouses for the individual rolling stock, so we track it down to that level. Our current inventory management does not, at the wastewater facilities, doesn't get down to that level because of the way it was set up. We'll get to that point, but this will allow us to do this one the correct way all the way down and improve our materials management in that area.
I'll make the motion. I'll make a motion that the Facilities Committee recommend to the full commission review and approve the water distribution surplus items to be declared as surplus and disposed of in the manner most beneficial to the JWSC.
I'll second the motion.
Motion is second, all in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Item is change order number 1, Splash North Mainland, Phase 3, Pump Station Rehab Engineering. Mr. Burrs.
Yes, sir. North Mainland Phase 3 of the project is to bring a force main down Harry Driggers down all the way to Old Jessup and come underneath the Altamaha Canal. The current routing of that is being considered changing as part of this. The other thing that's included in this change order is a 12-inch water main design down canal. We have another project that is separately funded outside of SPLOST for the installation of that water main. While they were in there disturbing the area, we were going to go ahead and get the contractor to put the water main in as well to save costs on the mobilization there. So there's two requests here on the change order. One of them is to allow additional funds for the rerouting of the force main. The other is to allow for the design of the water main improvements in that area. The force main improvements is $26,500. The water main improvements are $36,000 for a total price of $62,500.
On the force main, I think we need to delay that, action on that.
Yes, sir.
Talk to the contractor about staying with the original contract and tying into an existing 30-inch line on the other side of the railroad. I think that would make, it might save some construction costs, and also it'd be using the existing 20-inch line that's already in. And it might save a railroad crossing and a canal crossing. And, on the water line, would they be surveying both of those at the same time when they start surveying? Is there any reason why we need to proceed with that now if we delayed the other one too?
If we delayed the other one, they would be put out for bid at the same time, so any delay is going to delay both portions of the project.
Any other commissioners have any questions on this?
Could we, do we need to rebid the portion for the water line if we wanted to proceed with it separate, or?
For the engineering?
Yeah.
No, sir. The amount for this project falls under what we would have to publicly advertise.
Okay. Well, the water line portion that connects along Canal Road, it doesn't appear to be encumbrances that would limit the project, whereas on the sewer line, I think there's some perhaps a little more due diligence that we need to evaluate on that.
Understand. The water main project, just to refresh memories, and there's a 12-inch water main project to go from the back gate of Fletsey on Glencoe Parkway down to Canal Road, and then come down Canal to tie into the line by Canal Crossing. So if this design is done and put in as part of the bid on this project, we will still have that section from the back gate of Fletsey to Canal Road to install, and we intend to install that with in-house labor.
Okay.
Well, I recommend we delay action on this till we get back with the engineer and see if we change, get a proposal for them for doing this other, after the staff looks at it.
So would ask a question here, the appropriate motion perhaps would be to delay this or to defer this? Table it.
Table it's indefinitely, defer to the
Yeah.
next meeting.
Defer till the May meeting? Would that be adequate for the
I suspect it'll be
project
plenty of time.
timeline?
Yes, sir.
Then I'll move that we delay acting on this project until the May meeting of the Facilities Committee.
I'll second the motion.
Motion and a second, all in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Next item is the change order number 1, pump station 4105, 4107, expansion and downstream rehab project, engineering. Andrew?
Yes, sir. We have this existing design contract with Robert Civil Engineering. The request here is for additional money for surveying. Part of this project is to redesign a force main improvement that will not be going in immediately, but we will have the design available as flow comes into those basins. The original price provided by Roberts included the amount from the intersection of Hatala and Kate Road down to a new discharge location on Crispin Boulevard. Upon the initial engineering report provided and reviewed by staff, it appears we're going to have to do the entire length of the force main from the station. Currently, the force main comes down and turns on Hatala and goes underneath the interstate. So we will not do the length of the force main that's past Hatala, but from the station to Hatala needs to be surveyed, and then we're also going to do the same up at the short force main at 4107. So you'd be adding 5,500 feet of survey for the requested change order amount.
This is a line at one time we were not going to put in this 12-inch line. This is the portion of the 12-inch line we're not going to put in initially because we have an 8-inch line there.
Right.
And if they go ahead and survey this and have it in the plans, we might want to just take bids with and without this.
Okay.
And that way we'd see the cost.
Sure.
See if we got the plans and everything prepared. But all of this is up, Bergen Woods is up above this area. And Todd mentioned about all of this other development over here between 95 and all that's happening right now. Just tell us, update that for the commissioners.
Yes.
Chuck, you familiar where this is?
I'm getting an idea, yes.
Correct. So as the chairman said, this project really upgraded these, there's two stations involved, one at 4107, 4105, is really driven by development not only of the trade winds area that we're committed to a certain capacity there, but also the area around exit 38 there. That there's hotels, multiple hotels. Capitol Square is another development. Matter of fact, that gentleman came in when this project was funded as a capital project. That gentleman spoke at public meeting or public comment period actually. They're actively working. I know they are because they're doing diligence with us, as they are with the county, on master planning that area, and that's the area behind. There was a new hotel went up right behind the former Logan's Steakhouse, to give you a location, large parcel of property. We're looking at a master plan, working with them, trying to actually reroute some of the sewer, maybe through some of the Board of Education property, maybe. Connecting water lines in there, looping on Kate Road and all that. We've got a lot of really great ideas to make some improvements in that area. So that is one area. We expect these improvements at 105 to be needed, not next week, but definitely in the near future, I see.
This also serves the new apartment complex that's going in Bergen Woods, as well as the new animal control facility that would be going in at the public safety complex.
How many tap fees are we anticipating getting for all this, and how much is it going to pay toward this?
Depending on what they put in, if it's more apartment complexes, which is certainly on the table, if it's more, hotels, another type of thing. So that's a really good question, which we had to answer for.
An 8-inch, which is what's going in at Bergen Woods, is $217,000.
Right.
Most of your hotels are on 4 or 6-inch services. Most of them on 4-inch services, and those are about $80,000 a piece. And then there's certainly residential areas that could benefit from this as well, because you have that Saddle Brook subdivision where they were building another 70 homes, and those are going in as 5/8-inch taps, so that's another $140,000 for 70 homes.
Before we bid this, and we should be bidding it pretty soon, because if we approve this change order, the engineers are going to have the plans and specs finished in 45 days.
Per the schedule they provided to us.
They're supposed to be finished in December, though.
Correct. I think the final draft in January, but
Last December.
Right.
We need to make sure they understand we'd like to have it finished, because this is a big area, and Bergen Woods is going to need it.
They definitely are.
Before we bid it, I'd like for you to present at the next facilities meeting, an estimate of how much we're gonna get from tap fees for all of this.
Okay.
And what the estimated cost is again.
That should be fairly easy to, we'll make some assumptions, of course, but yeah, that should be easy to put together. Thank you.
Any other questions?
No.
Your motion?
I'll move that the Facilities Committee recommend approval of change order number 1 to PS 4107 expansion and downstream rehab engineering contract in the amount of $10,850 to the full commission.
I'll second the motion.
Motion second, all in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Next item, we'll go to the discussion section, water pollution control plant flows. Ms. Burrs.
Yes, sir. We have got the flow report here for the month of March, which was a little wetter than what we had seen the first 2 months of the year, but the effluent flow numbers were lower simply because of the timing of the flows. Influent concentrations at Academy Creek were normal, slightly lower than normal, but not much. And then the effluent concentrations were well within permitted range with 95% removal of BOD and TSS. You'll also see a reduction in the amount of sludge that went to the landfill at that plant for this month. One of the things we're doing at that plant is trying to optimize our solids processing to help lower the ammonia coming out of the plant for helping meet a proposed new permit that would be coming out. So we have changed the way we're operating that so that we're not running as much sludge through the plant right now from the solids processing area. So you can see a reduction there. And then for the data for March, I didn't bring this level of granularity, but we saw about a 30% increase in our removal efficiency the last 2 weeks of the month after making these changes compared to the first 2 weeks on the ammonia. So as that continues, we would expect to see those numbers lower.
So what did it, this shows 19.8. What did it get?
No, we're talking about the effluent was about 30% lower.
It was 8.4, so what was it?
We got down in the 4 to 5 range for the last couple weeks of the month.
So Mark's comfortable it's working?
He has been pleased thus far, yes, sir.
So that would affect the amount of sludge. What should we see as an optimum number or range?
Depends on the TSS coming into the plant naturally. The more dirt that's getting in, the more sludge you're going to have, even from the biologics. Plant at 7 million gallons a day. Dry tons, you could probably expect 3 to 4 dry tons a day would be reasonable.
Once it gets balanced and everything, it'll average out to
Right.
what it's been before.
Okay.
They just have more solids in the system they keep, but
Right.
the same amount's gonna be eventually going out when it's balanced in the system. They just have more in the system for a period of time. That's why it's lower now. He's building up some solids in the system, right?
Mhm.
Building up solids in the digester. What they had been doing was transferring daily to make sure they were running the belt presses daily, even though they had available capacity in the digesters. So now we're holding it in the digesters longer to allow it to break down more. And also, we don't have the supernatant, which is where you drain the water off the top of the digesters to thicken it. We don't have that going back to the head of the plant each day, which lowers the ammonia impact on the facility.
Yep.
I know that was very, very nerdy, but that's where we're at.
I asked the question.
Pretty exciting.
Did you come up with that on your own? Or out of the manual, how to run the plant?
Is both an acceptable answer?
Yeah?
I read the manual, then recommended it to Mark, so I guess he thinks I came up with it on my own.
Aren't we raising the mixed liquor and the aeration basis too?
So once you optimize, we'll go back to what we had been running as an average hauling of the sludge.
That's about, yes, sir. It should
Okay.
balance out. Unless we get a higher percent removal in the digesters by holding it longer, it may reduce slightly just because you may get a higher solids destruction.
Okay, thank you.
And pH did not go down during this period of time either.
No, sir. One thing that on Academy Creek that we have been looking at is the phosphorus. We did see a slightly lower, but again, that's just a grab sample. We're working with one of our industrial treatment facilities to see what maybe they can do to help reduce some of the phosphorus loads that they are discharging to us at that facility. But if you look at the graph on the next page, we're pretty much spot in line for where we were last year at this point on the average flow to that plant.
Yep.
So, tracking along nicely there. Flipping over to Dunbar, about 75% flow capacity there. Relatively normal effluent concentrations, and the effluent concentrations were stellar as always. Almost 99% removal of BOD and TSS. If you recall from the last meeting, I mentioned that they do have effluent filtration at that facility, which is something we're installing at Academy Creek as part of the rehab project. So you should expect to see similar numbers at Academy Creek once those filters get installed. We're running a little higher year-to-date out at Dunbar Creek, but nothing appreciably to be concerned about. Still have plenty of capacity in that facility at this time. And down at Southport, we are seeing much higher flows. We are still investigating potential areas where we're having some I&I issues that weren't previously showing up. That's a relatively newer system, so we suspect there is a break that we have not found yet where this is getting in. However, the plant is still handling the flow well, making a permit with plenty of room to spare, seeing 97% removal of the organics and 94% of the solids coming out. And the plant is being operated well within limits, and we are currently doing some televising to try to determine where our area of infiltration is coming in.
On Southport, what kind of flow meters do we have on the influent and effluent?
At Southport, I think they're Rosemount mag meters. Quote me on that, though.
We use reuse there, don't we?
We have reuse, yes, sir.
Why is the effluent more than the influent? I think, do we calibrate those meters?
They have been calibrated within the past 90 days. So unless we're returning a significant portion throughout the plant each day, I don't have an explanation for that.
Any other questions on these?
None.
Next item is a project report. Mr. Burrows and Mr. Klein.
Yes, sir. I'll go down and hit a few and then leave the bulk of them to Mr. Klein. Going down the list, starting from the top, State Route 99, Mr. Klein has some good news for us on that project here in a few minutes. Ridgewood, he will update as well, but we are making good progress on that site right now. The Crom tank is actually going in, the pre-stressed concrete tank, so they are moving along nicely there. North Mainland project we just discussed as far as the bids that were received on the Phase 2 and the engineering request on the Phase 3. 4003 I'll leave to Mr. Klein. We talked about the Canal Road project already. We are putting together bid specs on the FEMA project for the first 22 transfer switches, working on those as we speak. Magnolia we awarded today. L Street I will leave for Mr. Klein. Academy Creek Oxygen. Recall there was a warranty repair issue on a valve. That has been scheduled to take place next week, so hopefully that will be wrapped up next week and we'll be making final payments on that. Pump Station 4021 we took bids on, which came in higher than estimated. We are trying to negotiate scope with the contractor to reduce that closer to the original budget. The water pollution rehab project at Academy Creek, we received the 100% design, submitted a few comments back to them on that. and they are wrapping up the design and specs and bid package on that, hopefully to be completed for the end of the month, so we can potentially get that out for advertisements in May. Most likely looking at a 45-day bid on that project, so would be opening bids sometime in July, potentially, for the Academy Creek rehab. 4105 Basin expansion and CIPP we discussed. Altama and CPALM CIPP, that is a joint contract. They have mobilized in the CPALM's area, completed the pre-cleaning and televising, and they are reviewing that footage now and going through the submittal process on the CIPP liners. The Academy Creek roof repair is essentially complete at this point. They're doing punch list items. They came in, worked very quickly on that project, worked through the weekends, and been very pleased with our results on that project thus far. We did have a big rain the last couple of days, and there has been no water getting in the building for the first time in years. So
Okay.
staff is very pleased with that. And then Demery East Beach got kicked off earlier this week, is my
I
understanding.
got to clear it out there, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Just cleared so far.
So I will turn it over to Mr. Klein.
All right, thank you, Mr. Burrs. Moving back up to State Route 99, so he is correct. We got good news. Water line is all connected. The formerly separate North Mainland and city systems are now connected at that point, and it's just down to the testing, so that's what they're doing. They actually, and this is the reason why we do pressure testing and whatnot on new water lines, is they found a leak. And it's a good thing that we do that type of testing. That's being repaired, they're working through that. They got to repressurize it, make sure it holds to our standards, and then chlorinate it. Then we'll get that guy in service. Still looking to schedule, if social distancing permits, the Golden Valve event, so we can have a little bit of positive media attention with that. So it's a pretty big deal for us, like driving the Golden Spike. You know, it's pretty exciting. Ridgewood Production Facility, Mr. Burrows hit on that. If you've never seen a crom tank go in, it's a pretty cool thing to see. And what it is, the type is, it's called a pre-stressed concrete tank. Normally have rebar, steel reinforcing, and concrete for strength. What they do with this is they pre-stress it. They actually take, it's like a skidder, and they have a spool of wire, and they actually drive around the outside of this, ground storage tank, the form of it, and wrap the wire like a clock spring around it. It's pretty tense, tense work, because if that wire breaks for whatever reason, it does just what a clock spring does and unwinds really quickly. But if you've never seen that happen, it's kind of interesting. Once they get the wire tight and in place, they shoot it with concrete, holds in place, and the pre-stressing of that allows you to go with, it's a design feature. It's pretty innovative. There's at least 2 different companies doing that, but I don't think it's no longer patented. But Crom, I think, was one of the original innovators of it. Pretty interesting stuff. If you want to see that happen, send me an email as quickly as you can. That's probably going to be happening, if not this weekend, early next week, depending on weather. So pretty cool to see. 4003 decommission and gravity sewer. Did you ask me to talk on that one? Okay, so we just got the last round of comments, or of the 99% design plans from the engineer record. I believe it was on Friday last week. We turned around the last little minor comments back to them. They're revising those, and by the end of this week, we're hoping to have that thing advertised. So we've already got a schedule put out, and I think it puts us into June maybe of awarding and getting that thing under construction. So that is a SPLOST project for the city, portion of SPLOST. L Street Water, good news on that. That is a City of Brunswick project. The joint water portion of the Phase 1, which is a water line, a new water line that went in on L Street, was completed back around the 1st of February, so in service. Just been waiting for the city to finish up the paving portion of that Phase 1, and I believe we're told that they're going to have that completed by the end of this month. So that's going to be good. Once they're complete with that, then they're going to open up and allow their contractor to move forward with the next phase of that. So I didn't make any more marks except for maybe Bergen Woods offsite. I don't know if you touched on that one, but I'll just add a little bit to it. That's up there by the Spur Crossing Safety Complex. That is a force main upgrade alongside the western shoulder of the spur. That's also, it's in cooperation, it's a comprehensive agreement with the Bergen Woods development, but it's also at the same time we're throwing a little bit of money into it to upsize the force main to accommodate the safety complex growth animal control facility, et cetera. And maybe some potential new customers we could get off septic systems up the spur. But that's for future. Palms East waterline rehab, really nothing new to report on that. We're still looking at trenchless options, pipe bursting, et cetera, evaluating. Oak Grove Force Main, the developer there is still working through the county process of permitting for there. So it's a live project. They have submitted an initial route review to us. We've kicked that back with comments and waiting to get that back from the engineer. And that's the major ones, unless there's anything else in particular I can answer questions on.
Can you or Andrew address the unsolicited proposals list down there?
Certainly.
Tell us the status of those. Anticipate anything happening on those?
Absolutely. So we include that little list at the bottom. And once a project is actually, there's different phases, we'll call it, of the unsolicited proposal. So when somebody approaches us and said, hey, we'd like to do this, we actually add it to the list. It's not funded at that point anyway, but we add it to the list as we're in discussions. We put a little description there. Concept, you know, have they submitted the application? Actually, we have the mechanism for these for what ends up being a public-private partnership is the unsolicited proposal applications, the first step that an applicant or developer provides to us. It's a very rough general review of what the project is, what they want to do. The board actually approves that. That allows them to move forward with the engineering report, next step of commitment. That's the PER, preliminary engineering report. If that's approved by staff, everything looks good to go. Staff then brings back that proposal to the board for approval, and it turns into the actual contract between Joint Water and the developer, and that's the comprehensive agreement. That's the contract. There are some, we call this kind of the, down below what I call the capital project bullpen, but we kind of call this the unsolicited proposal bullpen as well. Once it's actually a comprehensive agreement is awarded and approved, we bump it up as a funded project into the capital project report, and that's why you'll see them pop up there with an asterisk. If it's got an asterisk, that's a unsolicited proposal. So going down the list, we see some that have been there for quite a while. So Sinclair subdivision, and then we try to put the dates in there underneath the notes as well. So since May of 2018, nothing has happened on that. So what that was to, in order for us to sign off or approve on a preliminary plat application for a large parcel of property on the north end of St. Simons, some sewer improvements were needed at that pump station that would serve that development. In order for us to sign off on it, the applicant generated the unsolicited proposal, preliminary engineering report, comprehensive agreement for the upgrades. It's just simply been stalled out. Nothing new to report on that. We check in with them quarterly at least, see, hey, is there any new progress on this? And there it sits. So unfortunately, that one is still on the list.
On that, the pump station that we were going to upgrade, we don't have title of that pump station yet either, do we?
I think we did get title
Yeah,
of
that
one.
that was on the original list, but I believe that's one of the ones we've already
Yeah.
received.
That was actually through the other Frederica Township. If we go down below to the next one in line.
They were going to upgrade, we were going to upgrade that pump station.
Correct. And as part of that agreement, I think, if I recall correctly, Frederica Township dedicated that parcel to us. That was part of the agreement.
Pretty sure they did.
Do we need to check the run times on that pump station and see if we need to be doing something on that, since Sinclair's just sitting there?
Correct. It's on the list. I know Sinclair pushed it over the edge. I'm not sure that I'm not sure it's a priority station for us to upgrade right now. But with the large development they were proposing at Sinclair, absolutely, it pushed it over the edge.
One of the main issues with that station is it's got a very shallow wet well, so you got very short cycle times. So if we do there's some rehab needed there for just interior piping and panels and things, but from a capacity situation, it's not, with the existing capacity out there, not necessarily an issue. We'll just have to flow pace that to try to take out some of those short cycle times.
Speed pumps?
Right now, yes, sir. Yes, sir. That would help solve that problem, because like I said, it's got very minimal usable wet well space.
What's the horsepower?
Pretty small,
Yeah, 10s or so.
10s or 20s, they're pretty small.
Where's that pump station sit exactly?
If you're heading north on Lawrence Road, you look off to your left, kind of when you pass the stables, where it used to be stable, I guess. As soon as you pass that to your left, you'll see a little indentation right there in the woods.
Okay, that's the one we're talking about.
That's it.
That's just back over in there.
Mhm.
Because there's another one that's by the fire station.
That's correct, right. That's the next one up the chain.
2033, right?
It pumps to this one.
Correct, right,
Yeah.
right.
Well, that's why I was trying to figure out which one you were talking about.
Right, right, yeah. So, we don't know what's happening with the property. What do we do with these things? They should sunset at some
Well,
point.
it's got the for sale sign on it.
Does it? So,
Have they proceeded any further in the project development with the county?
not that I'm aware of. Haven't seen anything else.
Okay, usually has a sunset in that timeline. If they don't act over a period of time, then it just goes to inactive and they start over.
Timelines here
What
in
is-
this county.
Preliminary plats are generally 5 years.
Yeah, 5 years for a preliminary plat before it expires.
Yeah,
If they've
Okay.
done no infrastructure improvements, it's generally 5 years.
If infrastructure improvements have been done, it's perpetual, right?
That kind of locks it in, yeah.
hadn't done anything.
So we may be there before we know it, be able to strike it off the list just by default, or by,
We can change subject. I have another question.
yes.
We have the original project estimate column,
Mm-hmm.
and then we kind of follow off of that. And some of these projects have been on here some time. Do we ever go back through and update the project cost based on the engineering estimate?
Great question. I'm really glad you asked that because I love explaining this. So the original project estimate is the first stab when that project is funded. A lot can happen between that point in time and the time that it actually, hardcore engineering happens and whatever this and that, so it can grow. We don't change the original project estimate because we want to know what we thought when we started. So what does change is the approved funding. So every time that either funding's approved in this room or change orders or anything like that, that is the total approved funds that you see right there. That's the actual money that staff has been provided with to fund a project.
So I guess where we're saying that something's not within our budget. We're not talking about the original project estimate. We're talking about the approved funding.
Total approved
estimate.
funds, correct, correct,
I'm just trying to, with this latest thing on
right,
not making, within what our budget estimate was,
exactly.
which number are we using? And as long as we're using, and we all understand, I guess it's been explained to me before, the approved budget line, I'm trying to figure out why our estimate and their estimates are so far off.
Right.
Is it how long we've had, I know that when I first started on the commission, we had a lot of projects sitting on the shelf, an engineering estimate, but 5 years ago, it wasn't right.
Changes quickly, right, right.
And with the current situation, there's no idea what's going to happen to prices over the next few months. They could go down because people need work, but they also could go up because of lack of availability of supplies. So,
To give you a good example, and it can be driven by that, it can be driven by the scope change even, can be driven on many things. Give you an example, Magnolia Park. So originally when that design estimate was created, that was us simply installing water lines. That was at the early conversations with the city, they were gonna do the roadway project anyway. So we were just gonna go in there, tear up the roads first, put the water lines in, patch them, and then they were gonna do their roadway project. So the original estimate didn't include roadway stuff other than patches and whatnot. So as the project evolved, working with them and scoping it, they then looked to us to help with the paving and things like that. So anyway, so many things can change from the original project estimate, which we don't change. That's where we want to, I don't want to move that around. What the total approved funds is the number that you're, yeah. Thank you for asking that.
One comment, I don't have anything else for Todd, but
Yes, sir.
on
Thank you.
Academy Creek plant, talking about estimates. We originally estimated for $10 million, and we had $5 million for sewer rehab. sudden, we got a lot bigger estimates for it. Right, Andrew?
If we did everything, yes, there would be more than 10 million.
Like 20 million for it, or something.
Yes, sir. A lot of that was the dryer cost, the second dryer,
And also the administration.
that building, right, yes, sir.
So obviously, we're gonna be cutting back on that. But let's talk about the funding for that too, because the holdup is the city of Brunswick approving the.
Actually, no, sir, that's not the case anymore. I don't know if it's frustrating or good news. We talked to the GFA the other day and requested, well, we're having some issues getting both parties to sign off. Could we just move forward with one? They did not want to do that, said that wouldn't be fair to Glynn County since they made the request to both of them, but now they're willing to let us do it without having anybody sign off on the loan. So we got to do a different style paperwork, and as soon as we get that, we'll get that turned back around.
So does the county have to approve it again though?
No. If this would have been an option when we first started, this would have been approved in September. So,
You know, the interest rates are going down, should we reapply maybe for a lower interest rate?
yeah, I think we're locked in on this one, but once we get to finance and start talking about meters, yes, that's an attractive option at this point. But yes, they, Miss Williams has offered that, and she has talked to the director, and they're supposed to be sending us the paperwork. So,
Let's just tell us about Academy Creek, where we're at and when we might be bidding it, but also about the sewer rehab, so we have an idea of where the 15 million is going. Because Chuck's new and he doesn't know, and Bob might need an upgrade on it too.
yes, sir. The Academy Creek project, there's multiple things included in there. We've got it scoped down with some additive alternates, just in case things didn't come in lower than expected. The base bid is projected to be under 10 million at this point, but there are additives that could get it up to $20 million. Those additives are a secondary dryer, rehabbing the existing administrative building, adding a offloading area for sludge from the other two wastewater plants to be brought to Academy to go through the dryer. But in the base bid, you've got tertiary filters, you've got some repiping internal so that we can, basically the way the plant's set up now, it's two separate plants. We're going to repipe it so they can all be operated as one plant, which will help balance everything out and help us meet the new permit. We're doing a new primary splitter box, tearing down the existing pre-aeration basins. The pre-aeration basins is the area right past the influent wet well when you're going on Newcastle. That's going to be torn down, and a new smaller structure will be put in that will be have static weirs that balance the flow to the three aeration basins. That'll do two things. It'll allow us to actually balance the flow to the three basins. The three basins are different volumes, so getting the flow proportionate is important so that you're getting equal loads to each basin. That'll also allow us to have room if we have to come back for nutrient levels and come back and put an anoxic basin. There will likely be room later to add an anoxic basin. One of the real challenges at Academy Creek is the footprint that's available there. So putting in that smaller basin will help. And then we're doing a lot of work on the front end of the plant, changing the way the sewer comes in the front end of the plant to eliminate some old junction boxes that are sinking. And then we are adding new bar screens. We're replacing the existing bar screens, which you could put your fist through right now, so it's not catching a whole lot. But we're putting in new 1/4-inch bar screens there, and then putting odor control covers on the wet well and drafting that air out of there into an odor treatment system. That'll be a biological treatment system with a carbon polisher on the off chance there's breakthrough odors that get through the biologics. So the base bid is estimated now a little over 9 million, so we'll see what they come in, and we have, I think, 4 alternates that we could consider based off those prices. The sewer rehab work, we are currently going through our CCTV program of televising our entire system, which has never been done. We have earmarked that money for large basins, 4002, which drains the lower half of the city of Brunswick, and 4003, where we're doing the pump station rehab project, which basically drains everything from Pi Nova to Gloucester Street, and all the way from Marside over there. So those are large basins on the mainland that are aged, and we've identified segments in there based off of the scoring of our television footage there, and we'll prioritize that. We're also looking at areas on St. Simons in the 2001, 2002 areas, which are on the south end of the island. Again, these are large basins in the oldest section on the island in the mainland that we're prioritizing that. Rather than coming in and doing the entire system, we're picking out the specific segments of line necessary to be done. A lot of the pipe we're looking at is old clay pipe, which clay pipe kind of gets a bad name, but it went in the 50s and 60s, and it's still flowing today. So we got a good lifespan out of it. It just needs a little attention in some areas right now.
They still sell it, too.
They still sell it.
Do they really?
You can still buy clay pipe. So certainly those are areas. We just did the big lining project on the SPLOST project, which we believe has already paid dividends at the plant based off of some flows we've seen during rain events for the I&I. And we suspect if we're able to do $5 million worth of sewer rehab work between those 4 basins which we just talked about, we'll see reductions in those areas as well, just based off the age and conditions of those lines.
What about the smoke testing that we did in Brunswick?
We smoke tested about 600,000 linear feet of pipe, and we found 700 defects, I believe was the number. We are going through and fixing those as we can. Given the current climate, we're trying to avoid situations where we would have to go up to a homeowner's door and get access as much as possible just to eliminate our interactions right now. But we're working on the ones that we found on some manhole rehab that we're doing, also on some lower clean out areas. We have prepared letters to send out to the homeowners for getting their private issues fixed, but we have not sent those out yet given the current economic situation. But we have found a few major areas that have been fixed. There was an area out by the mall that was draining a lot of rainwater into the system. That was a private situation that has been fixed. We've also identified a couple of segments of our lines that were where we had sags that were causing problems. One of them was just fixed recently over on Monk Street. So all in all, the system was in very good shape for its age. Dr. Bloster, I believe his name is, that came in and gave the report, said that he was surprised at how good of condition our system was in given its age. So,
Andrew mentioned the odor control at Academy Creek. The 3 pump stations that we have, they're also going to have odor control, 40, 35,
Right.
40, 36, and 4003. And then, Andrew, we're doing something for odor control on St. Simons.
yes, sir, we've been running preliminary trials on a in situ odor control treatment where basically we provide aeration at the pump station site to eliminate the production of hydrogen sulfide. The methanogens don't like aerated environments. So we've been doing that at a large pump station on the island. Now, there are certainly still odors at the intersection of Frederica and Sea Island where that pumps to. We take samples there and putting those on one station. Now, I know for everyone, it either smells or it doesn't, but off of the H2S readings we've been getting, we've been seeing a 10 to 20% reduction at that intersection. So we've ordered 6 more that are supposed to be delivered this week and will be installed as soon as we can on other stations to see if we can make a bigger impact at that location. It's a cost-effective item, less than $10,000 per station to put that on, and you're not pouring chemicals down the drain that are going to impact the ability to treat the sewage later. We had been using some chlorine, which is cost-effective, but if you overdose chlorine, you can cause problems at the wastewater plant with the bacteria. Don't respond well to that. So we're seeing encouraging results there. They also help in areas where you have grease because as the water is constantly churning, the grease can't separate out and get to the top.
If it works at these other stations, would we want to buy one for Sea Island, or would have
Yes,
Sea
sir.
Island put it?
We have been in communication with the private system that manages Sea Island, and if we can continue to show progress with this, we have talked to them about installing one on their pump stations, and they are open to that.
So since we're doing aeration on the collection system, does that improve the efficiency at the plant? Some of it's already been,
If you have
Estimated.
widespread aeration, you will see lower concentrations coming into the plant. So you do have to be careful that you don't take too much of it out before it gets to the plant.
exactly.
But no longer than what we're holding it in a lot of these stations, it shouldn't have that significant of an impact because you just don't have it sitting there. It's just the way the bacteria work. If it's an anaerobic condition, they they are present, and if not, they die out. So if we just don't allow the bacteria to be present, it may not necessarily reduce our treatment needs at the plant a whole lot, but it just won't allow the bacteria to convert the solids over to gases. Essentially what we do at what the digesters at Academy Creek, they're aerobic digesters at Academy Creek. If you go to Academy Creek, the things that have odors is the raw sewage at the front. If you go up by the digesters, there's no odor because it's an aerobic environment. Now, if you stand on top of the digester and look in it, you can smell it, but there's no odor anywhere else, so.
Anyways, Georgia Pacific's that's creating the smell.
I believe we have a slight cause of that right now at Academy Creek that we're actively working on and will be eliminated with the upgrade. That is one of the first items that will be installed once we get this bid out.
And on the meter project, you're going to talk about that in the finance.
We're talking about the financing options. We did at the last meeting approve moving forward with Delta Municipal, which reps some Neptune meters. We have been in contract negotiations with them, getting close to the end of that as far as some of the way the software and network contracts would work for their managing the system.
Talk about the financing and the finance.
Yes, sir.
That's a good report. Anybody have any other questions?
Very good.
Y'all don't want to talk about solids anymore?
None, we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you.